なのでこのことを知る人間はできる限り少なくしておきたかったのです。
And especially make sure that Picarne doesn't know what you're doing, otherwise, well, eh. We open right from where we left off last week with the hairy version of Majora's Moon falling towards another town. Of course, everyone panicked, except for Togo. Naturally, he summoned the maximum Kizna Kaiser, which resulted in his whole party joining him, as even Logi low-key wanted to ride in the mech. Also, I'm just noticing this, but the gorilla's head is very visible on the back of this thing. Well, at least it's not the worst case of kibble I've seen recently. And yet I'm still backing that. Since they couldn't blow up the moon without taking the town with it, Togo decided to push it as far as they could, which turned out to be outer space. Yeah, okay, I kind of have to let my inner PR fan out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Rangers in space! This also led to an interesting bit where the Fantasy World characters got to experience even the concept of outer space for the first time, as they were living in an age where they honestly believed that heaven was real. It's not a big deal, and probably not even a major plot point, but still a fun little detail regardless. Anyway, now that they were a very safe distance away from anyone, they broke out the Band-Aid sword, and Obari posed as much as they wanted. And since it was the type that used VR controls, my personal favorite was always Time Ranger, they left the final attack up to the resident swordsman, who managed to deliver a pretty awesome and epic slash. With that, they returned to the ground where I guess that old geezer fell down and somehow didn't disintegrate upon re-entry. I mean, Dien survived it, so I don't see why not. However, he was still fused with the Mana Seed and could only be separated either by dying or leaving it up to Teltina's unique ability. A giant wolf came off the lowly princess's chest. Yeah, that's probably the most mundane thing I've seen recently. But yeah, it basically pulled a reverse watermelon by eating the seed and spitting out the old man's bald melon. And even though it really didn't look like one, Idra could somehow tell it was also a Mana seed. The princess would explain her creature's origins in a bit, but first her allies wanted to cuddle with the big furball. She of course insisted that her knight do the same if he wanted to, but... Anyway, as it turned out, the wolf, who I'm not even going to bother to try to say the name of, was specifically created to only consume mana seeds. As such, its actual fighting capability was really low, hence why it could only absorb KO'd seed users. It was also worth noting that Teltina specified that someone made a wish to exercise Mana Seeds from this world, but never said it was herself. Combine that with her earlier statement that seeds could only be removed from dead bodies, as well as her flashback to what looked like her mother's deathbed, and yeah, it all starts to add up, doesn't it? As a result, it did really highlight the noble goals she wanted to achieve, and to her credit, she was doing in a smart way by keeping it on the down low so that seed users wouldn't actively avoid her. This ended up making Togo recollect another one of his series episodes, specifically the second one, where I guess we could assume he was the type of red who was actually the last member to join the core team like with Gao Rangers. Though, unlike those teams who managed to maintain their secret identities for their own safety, Togo probably busted them by the end of his episode. However, after resolving one conflict, another one ended up replacing it. An offspring of the Demon Queen named Abu Dhabi had arrived, and yeah, if you recognize that VA, it is indeed that guy. And for this channel, he played Prunes in Star Twinkle Parade Cure, and for Super Sentai, he played a few Monsters of the Week, and well... I've been pulling you out a lot recently. But yeah, Dark Prunes here, along with his other royal demon brethren, were trying to revive their queen by literally planting a few seeds that would foster the negative mana that they needed for her. And of course, they could give less of a damn about the humans who got caught up in the destructive discourse they sowed, which apparently included Teltina's aforementioned mother. And yeah, it's probably worth mentioning that this is the first time in the series so far where the princess dropped all of her usual formal and polite talk when confronting Abu Dhabi. To even further highlight his brutality, he revealed his latest victims, the La Resistance, who wish for the power to protect their town, ironically enough, like the heroes that they just saw save the day. Yeah, you better believe this villain tried to gaslight Togo by turning his bonds philosophy against him. This led to a classic, yet well-done exchange of ideals that you'd find in a lot of tokusatsu, where in spite of being warped in many ways, the villain did bring up a good point in the inevitability that people will come into conflict with each other, and those feelings will only be amplified when they have the backings or bonds of many others to affirm their position. He also brought up the fact that the Royal Demons did honestly come together because they wanted to be reunited with their mother, which ended up leading to another flashback to Kisna 5, this time episode 43, which would put it around the final arc of most series. As such, I guess it was the point where villains like these Yatterman knockoffs decided to raise some survival flags by both face-turning through the power of love and all that. Yeah, it's cheesy, but if the villains are likable enough, I don't see why you would want to do a twist like that. Also, I see you, Atsuhiro Tomioka, bringing over the third seeders from Boom Boonger after the original manga really didn't give us much context about these characters other than the small panel. However, Togo thankfully recognized that while those guys ultimately earned mercy from his team by likely giving up their evil ways, these demons were trying to resurrect their dead mom by destroying the world, so yeah, there's a bit of a difference. At the same time, the girls tried to deal with the demon-seeded resistance, and while they managed to save a few of them with Idra's magic and Teltina's wolf, the liar's body was starting to give out due to the need to contain the excess amount of mana in herself. Logi's sword could have absorbed it, but her legit bloodlust over Abu Dhabi overrode her usual calm demeanor. Yeah, this is what I mean when I say I like to see layers to my characters, as this really highlighted how the princess's personal vendetta was overtaking her usual sensibilities and led to her making a really bad call. Likewise, Logi finally overcame his simping for his princess and actually repented for his previous actions by taking a hit for Togo. Again, I kind of wish he had previously said that he wasn't just doing all of this for his princess, but whatever, this is still a really good payoff. This led to Togo not quite having a full flashback this time, but enough to confirm that indeed Kisna Silver had died in battle, likely after taking a hit for him. This awoke some kind of dark energy from within him that gave him a brief advantage over Abu Dhabi. However, this is cut short by the arrival of the wielder of the Royal Scepter, Xiaoha, who just single-handedly dealt with all of the demons by summoning freaking Cthulhu. And if the tentacles weren't off-putting enough, she also talked like a valley girl. Yeah, I can kind of get why Idra hated losing her family's honor to this bitch. With that, Abu Dhabi retreated, but not before unintentionally hinting that there might have been another Isekai hero just like Togo, which Idra later confirmed might have been the same hero who originally sealed away the Demon Queen. Which, considering how Togo originally got to this place, and combined with the fact that Silver died before him, and yeah, things start to line up, which even the Reds seem to pick up on. However, there was no time to think about that, as the episode ended with the even more toxic version of Cleon transporting them to the capital to help treat Teltina after she overexerted herself. Yeah, this is probably the best episode so far, with some pretty good action and even better villain development. Abu Dhabi, on top of having a great design, also managed to single, or rather many-handedly flesh out the antagonists of the show and the threat they posed. Combine that with Teltina pretty much losing it, and things are really starting to heat up in many different ways. A basic rule of superhero stories is that the villains are just as important as the title characters. They don't have to be overcomplicated with stuff like gray moralities and all that. I mean, they can be well done, but above all else, they should feel like a genuine threat and the antithesis to what the hero stood up for. In this case, royal demons like Abu Dhabi really highlight how bonds can be used in toxic ways by unifying them in a selfish cause like reviving their mother. And this week, they also did by taking advantage of the Resistance's unified ideals of protecting the town. I think it was implied they might have used some brainwashing, but at the same time, when a groupthink is factored in, it's hard to go against the grain. I like this when antagonists warp the hero's ideals as well as their sensibilities, like with Teltina, who seemed to be especially triggered after likely losing her mother to their accolades. Interestingly, the demons don't seem like the only antagonists in the show, as Xiaohe doesn't exactly seem to be on the up and up considering the whole Cthulhu summoning thing and all that. But yeah, there was just a lot going on in this one episode, with even some decent action, mostly thanks to Abu Dhabi's unique skill set, that matched well with his pretty insane design that really got across the idea that he was a deadly jester. I actually like that we never see his mouth, like in the manga, as it just makes him feel even more off-putting, as if he might not even have a face underneath that mask. It all makes for overall probably the best episode of the series so far, with a lot of great development for both our heroes and villains. Honestly, the only other thing I kind of wanted to see was the story arc for those turncoat villains from Kisuna 5. Who knows, they might have ended up being the best part of their series.
Thank you for watching, and if you want to deepen our bond, you could always watch a few of the other videos on this channel.
We've got something new coming out every day, except Thursdays and Fridays, where I can at least get some reprieve.
Look forward to Kamen Rider Gav tomorrow. Until then, though, farewell for now, my friends, and if you'll excuse me, I have to look into a certain crowdfunding.